Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and today we're gonna just walk through a Court of Stars 23. This was done this week, at least at the time of recording this video. It was a bursting explosive fortified week. This was a pretty good run, I would say. I was pretty happy with how our group performed. We did have a few deaths. Some of them were on purpose, some of them were just like misplaced CC'd, miss kicks, you know, so on and so forth. So we'll break down everything in the run. I'm gonna go over my talent build, kind of our thought process to the run, what went right, what went wrong, and just kind of the general, like, just nerd out over the key. So per usual, we're gonna obviously jump in the boat at the start of the dungeon. Now, I want to state this like right off the rip. We end up doing a dock pull. In my experience, the dock pull is very frowned upon in the pug community for some reason. The reason we're going to be doing the dock pull at some point during this key, though we do it at a very unique time, it's very efficient count. All the mechanics are avoidable. The damage is only really on the tank, so if you have a strong tank, you'll be able to live it just fine. We actually end up doing the dock pull without a healer entirely. The healer at the time will be running around grabbing buffs, but we'll get to that when we get there. But I just want to stay there, like, if you're doing a court and you see a tank do a dock pull, just go with the flow. It's a fun pull. It's the only big pull in the dungeon that you can do efficiently with cooldowns. So just, you know, just own it. Now we're going to be starting off with a pretty big pull in Lust. I'm doing a CC here because that means that the sentry won't throw a torch at me right when I pull it. We're waiting for a hunter to get up here. I'm going to pull this sentry. My group's going to start hitting it from range. I'm going to pull the second sentry, then I'm going to pull the guard pack that's right next to it. We're going to drop an Ursula's Voltex on the sabers, and then we're going to basically Lust, and I'm going to try to get this construct in as well. We have an assigned kick order to this pull. If you're doing this pull in a pug, don't. You need to make sure you're at least kicking the charge stations. The suppressors are also pretty important to kick on the construct, but we have a set kick order. It's going to be pretty much me, followed by our Demon Hunter, followed by you know, our Hunter or our Shaman, followed by myself again. You pretty much need a 3-kick rotation at all times on the construct. If there's no mobs in the pull with it, or you don't plan on chaining any more in, you don't need to kick the charging station. All you have to do is worry about kicking suppress. But we're going to pull the next construct here. The patrols are in a kind of a weird spot. We were a little bit slow on that last pack, but that's all right. And then I'm going to tag in these worms. I'm trying to chi wave, but my chi wave wasn't going off, so I end up using Crackling Jade Lightning there. Now, once again, our kick order it's going to be me, our Demon Hunter, and then it should be either our Shaman or our Hunter, just depending on the situation. If there's, like, you know, a lot of frontals or swirls on the ground, we'll have a range kick. If not, we have our Shaman. Actually, now that I say that, both are range, so it doesn't even matter. Once that pack of worms dies, we're going to pull in the next pack. Basically, we're using the construct as like a meat target, just something that has a lot of health people can kind of focus and cleave off of. I'm going to CC the sentry while it gets close to us because I don't want it to interfere with the pull that's currently going on. There's just a lot. There's all these different worms that are going to start dropping swirlies. The guard obviously has a frontal, and then there's obviously a kick rotation that's needed on the construct. So we just want to make sure everything's under control before we pull in the sentry. I'm trying to make sure that the guard is facing away from my group for that quelling strike, but if I do happen to be facing it at the group, we're going to try to just get a CC on it. Now at this point we feel pretty comfortable, so we're swapping to the sentry while it's running to the beacon here, but we need to be really careful of this house that's right in front of us, because if someone walks too close, we'll end up pulling the double sabers in there, and on a fortified week, that's really scary. I got a paralysis on that quelling strike there to make sure that the frontal wasn't going to go at us, and then we're going to disable this beacon. Now, normally what a lot of groups might do at this point is they might run down to the docks and do the dock pull. We're going to be doing that later on to optimize our efficiency a little bit. We're going to just do this bridge pull by itself since, well, it's an annoying pull with a saber in it, and we just want to make sure that we're focusing down the sentry. We do have an Ursul's Vortex, and our Druid was baiting far out, so the cat wasn't going to leap on anyone, and then the cat should blow up pretty quickly. Cats will typically jump at range players. It can typically be baited by a range in particular, but if you have multiple range in your group, the best thing I can do, or I can recommend, is just spreading out. Now, once again, we're going to make sure that we're focusing down the construct. We're going to have a 3-kick rotation on it. It's going to be in this case, it's going to be our Shaman, followed by our Demon Hunter, followed by me. And then we're really just going to want to try to lock down as many of these quelling strikes and charge blasts as possible. So our Shaman did a really good job there, knocking everything up on those casts. I just leg sweeped a little bit early at the start. And then on the charge smash, we always want to make sure we're facing it away from our group. My group knows that I'm always going to be facing it away from the bridge. We kind of have like this 180 degree that I'm going to kind of circle around towards the courtyard, where most of my group knows that the bridge side is going to be the safer part of the pull. So here comes the charge smash. I inch a little too close before it goes off, and then I'm going to just back these guys up a little bit. Again, just making sure that we're watching the quelling strike. It's not too difficult. I do have a weak aura, you'll notice kind of in the middle of my screen, that just will show a cast bar. This means that I don't have to be paying attention to each and individual nameplate. I can just kind of look in the general direction of where the nameplates are, the center of my screen, and I'll see there's 1 quelling strike here, there's 3 quelling strikes. So that's why I have that weak aura package. That's something that I made myself. It's very easy to set up, but if you want access to it, it's in my Discord. So at this point, we're just disabling our beacons per usual. I ended up using a paralysis on the patrol just to make sure it's kind of locked in place. Most patrols in just all dungeons, typically the center mob is the mob that's going to be kind of leading the pack. So if you CC the center mob or the lead patrol, you'll actually stop the entire pack from moving. So that's what I did there. I just paralysis the Arcanist. And now we're going to be pulling this guard with the worms over. Now, of course, on Explosive Week, we need to be careful. We get 2 spawns there. Our Resto Druid is there to make sure that they're getting killed. We need to be careful of this Quelling Strike. And the worms, when they die, will kind of leave a pool on the ground that we need to dodge. Now we're going to pull in the boss since we're feeling pretty comfortable. I have enough threat. And we are just chilling here. Now, this isn't the best placement. Ideally, I'd pull him back a little bit more towards the bridge, just because, as you can see, the swirls get clipped underneath the carpet, which is not good. Also, I've had DPS get stuck on the statue, and obviously, like, the trees are pretty annoying as well. Our shaman got a little close to that patrol up to the left-hand side, but that's a-okay. We didn't end up pulling it. And then the Quelling Strike, we just want to get CCs on. So I got a leg sweep there. We also got the knock from the shaman, which is really good. This is my first time actually playing with an in-hand shaman this season in like a serious key. And holy shit, our shaman's so fucking dope. They have so much, like they have double cap totem. They have really consistent damage. They bring lust. They're pretty tanky as well. Just like all around, just like a powerhouse DPS. And then the rest of this fight is pretty bare bones. I mean, it's basically dodge frontal, dodge line. This is a scary little overlap there. And then jump on Arcane Lockdown. And that's pretty much it. So I might skip forward here, and if I do, we're chilling. I do want to talk about my build actually really quick. I'm running a really unique build in this dungeon, so my overall DPS is actually going to be much lower than I was hoping for. But I wanted to try more of like a passive, like brew build. So I'm running Blackout combo, and I'm running the Capstone for Weapons of Order here. I'm running Chi Surge, but my issue with Chi Surge is it's fairly underwhelming because it's similar to how Weapons of Order worked back in Shadowlands. When you would use Weapons of Order, it would like burst for damage. But what was cool about Weapons of Order back then is that the damage was actually pretty significant, I feel like. Where right now it's not that great. It does give you cooldown reduction on Weapons of Order, which is nice. But because you can't actually ramp the damage component of it, because Weapons of Order requires like a damage ramp once you hit it, most of the damage from it is pretty, like, it's very minor front-loaded. Compared to Bonus Brew, it does much less damage. But then you kind of have to take into account, like, oh, well, it is passive, it is CDR, so more weapons use. It is better, a little bit better for Snap Threat, as long as everything is grouped. But it was just something that I wanted to try out. I knew that the 23 Court wasn't going to be like a big deal, so for this run specifically, I'm running Blackout combo and Chi Surge, and I decided to drop Bonus Brew entirely. Okay, now here's the kind of interesting part. I'm going to pause the video really quick. Our Druid is doing the skip, and what I mean by that is that he is going to run past the Sentry, or the Guardian Construct, at the top of the stairs in the boss room, and he popped his defensive, and he is going to wild charge through. Now what he's going to do is he's going to unlock a checkpoint for us. At the same time, he's going to pick up some buffs that he can get access to. And then he's going to purposely die and come back to the graveyard, which should be right over this bridge here. And then he's going to meet us down here. So what we're doing, me and my 3 DPS, is we're going to go do the dock pull without a healer. Now, the reason the Resto Druid's going to die on purpose is mostly because it's bursting week. So he needs to get back before these mobs start dying, so we don't die to bursting, basically. Our goal here is to blow up the Arcanist. This is the scariest mob in this pull. You need to make sure you're kicking the Nightfall Orb, and the Seal Magic is really annoying. You can typically just use like a stun or some sort. So I'm going to pop Diffuse Magic pretty early on in this pull. We kind of have a nice CB going in. I'm going to open with I think I leg swept there, but unfortunately it overlapped Cap Totem. but that's all right. And then as like we feel comfortable, I'm gonna maybe roll some cooldowns if I need to. So I get a little low. I end up opting to use the health pot here. The quelling structure coming out. All I'm doing is sidestepping, and most of my DPS are staying up. So you would have noticed there our druid just died, but that was on purpose. He is very far away. Basically, he was just getting back to us quicker. So I dampen and Nizao that came up. I also have Weapons of Order for a little bit more damage, and we're just kind of cruising through this pool. I have a Celestial Brew built up now at this point. We have a 10 stack. I end up using it, and we're just chilling. Realistically, I don't even think he needed to come back. But it was a good thing. So the only buff that we got kind of rolled really poorly on some of our buffs here, but we only got Waterlogged Scroll. So we have really good movement speed right now. On this side, we end up getting the Fell Orb, which can be activated by Demon Hunters, Warlocks, and I think Paladins and Priests can also click it. So our Demon Hunter's going to go over there and click it now. We're kind of like waiting for Imps, but I used all my defensives, and I end up getting one shot here by the Shadow Slash. So we kind of panic here a little bit. Some explosives are coming out. We Nova, I Leg Sweep, then I call for Roar, and then we're gonna get I think just a Ring of Peace on those casts, and then they should die before they finish anything. So yeah, this Shadow Slash here is really scary for Brewmaster monks, and actually most tanks. Warriors can Spell Reflect it, and normally instead of a Shaman, we're running with an Arms Warrior or a Fury Warrior who normally will taunt Spell Reflect for me. So in my head, I was just kind of like used to that happening. And that's ended up why I didn't use Fort Brew. I didn't like try to stun it. I didn't try to like paralysis it. I just didn't really do anything to the Mistress. Now, the other problem with our buffs is that we're not running a comp. We have Bizarre Goods. You can see them over here at the top of the screen. That is only accessible by Warriors, Rogues, and Leatherworkers, but we don't have a Leatherworker in this comp. So, unfortunately, we won't be able to activate a free mini-boss without having to kill an Enforcer. So what ends up happening in this run is that our trash efficiency really slows down towards the end here. We do have access to the book. This gives 10% DR. Once again, it's able to be activated by Demon Hunters. I think it's Priests, Paladins, Warlocks, and I think Scribes or Inscriptionists, maybe. I honestly don't know. Unfortunately, I do have Leg Sweep here, but I was super late on. I just like blinked out. So this is a bad play on my part. That's why we lost our Hunter. He's going to end up releasing once we clear our debuffs, and then he's just going to come back over. The graveyard's like right behind us. So good knock on Eye of the Storm. Shadow Slash comes out. It hits me really hard. I drop really low, and then I just go right into a Celestial Brew. I should have used Diffuse Magic there. It is a magical ability, so you want to try to mitigate that damage as best as possible. So you either want a Celestial Brew already active, or you want to use something like Dampen Harm or Diffuse Magic. I had both available. Didn't hit it because I'm bad. At this point, we are waiting for Imps. I could have pulled the Enforcer, and we could have let the Imps pad into us and then just like blew them up. But we felt like we were on a really good pace. We didn't want to risk anything. And so that's why we're just standing here. Looking back, we could have probably been a little bit more aggressive, but it's not a big deal. We end up very comfortable on the timer at the end of this key. So we're basically going to start with double Cap Totem. I don't have Ring of Peace, and I don't have Leg Sweep available for like 2 seconds. We now have Leg Sweep if we need it. We just get a knock. Again, Shamans are so good at controlling mobs like that. Just Cap Totem into like a knock. And I think they also play with a Sundering, so they can just like in-cap all of them really quick. Force Ripper's going to pull to the top of the stairs here. This is a common strategy you'll see. Some groups, depending on where the Enforcer is actually at, they might pull them down here. They might pull them to the bottom of the ramp. Again, it depends on your group, depends on where the Enforcer is currently placed. Another thing about our route, or not our route, but like kind of the RNG aspect of this run, is that our Enforcers were just like the worst spawns. So it spawned on this side, then it swapped back over to the other side after we killed this one, and then it came back to this side. So the amount of time we spent running was just fucking insane. So when it comes to buffs, again, we have basically the Waterlogged Scroll, which is speed, and then we have the 10% crit, and we have a 10% DR, but that's it. We don't really have anything, like we don't have the 10% damage, we don't have good haste, and then of course we had an issue when it came to activating the free mini bosses without having to kill Enforcers, which meant our trash efficiency was basically, you have to single target all of these mobs down. So we end up lusting on this mob. We have our CDs up, we have Meta, we have True Shot. Shamans don't really have cooldowns from my understanding. You do have Feral Spirits, but you have like consistent, CDR. So we're just going to try to kill this mini boss. This mini boss on a fort week does a ton of damage. You can see that there. We all jump down to like 30% health. So you want to try to get this mob down as fast as possible. The eyeball mob is also pretty scary. Now, normally, if we didn't have to kill 3 enforcers, what I would just do is I would pull trash onto this boss and we would just like lust it and, you know, make sure that we're CCing and kicking and all that stuff. But because of our current, like, okay, we need to kill, you know, 2 more enforcers. We're already at 85% count. There is no reason for us to pull extra trash, right? We don't want to go over because that's just a waste of time. So unfortunately, this run wasn't like the greatest when it came to that, but that's a-okay. So now we're heading back to the other side. You can Ring of Peace the Inquisitor, who is the mob lead, or the patrol lead. So you can actually kind of like speed up the patrol by ringing them, or you can prevent them from moving for a little bit. Druids can also root them for some reason. Like you can't like do like distract and stuff, but you can root that guy and you can also use Ring of Peace. But like paralysis won't work, for example, or polymorph. And then same thing here is just we're sitting kind of at the end and we're just going to line of sight. Enforcer should be line of sight, especially in higher fort keys. Again, like you can kind of get away with it in like an 18 or a 15 or whatever, but in higher content like this, that dot, if you don't have a defensive, rips. And the next mini boss that's going to come out, we want our defenses for. So it's better to play safe than sorry. This is pretty much a free key though. And now this is the main reason why groups do the dock pull. I want to kind of go back to that. Because back here now we're not having to pull like 2 packs, you know, 2 target pulls, 3 target pulls. We were able to do like a massive 7 target pull, which is better for CDs. Obviously it's better for like just the general details meter. It's just a really good efficient pull, so you don't have to spend as much time in this back area. You can kind of fast track your enforcers, kill a couple patrols that are in your way like the imps, and just kind of go with the flow. This guy's really scary. The dot ticks are really, really kind of high. In higher keys, a lot of people opt to use like a warlock or a priest of some sort to help with like massive spells and whatnot. You can see our demon hunter is kind of bleeding out. It expires and he dies. He did have blur. He did have his health pot available, so he had options to live there. But again, it's really, really scary when it expires. And then we have just a general kick rotation. So it does require 3-ish melee kicks. You can typically do 2 melee kicks and a range kick like a hunter or a mage of some sort, but having 3 melee kicks is always better. And then this guy should go down here. And now if you look at the mini map, our enforcer is on the far side again. So I'm going to Ring a Piece to kind of speed that guy up. And I'm going to try to grab the enforcer and bring him back. I don't like the position of this enforcer because the line of sight spots around here are really, really bad. So I tagged him with like a Crackling Jade Lightning, but I saw our Demon Hunter running over, so I wanted to get a little bit more damage on him. But doing that meant that his Fel Detonation was being casted way earlier. So we're like trying to LOS here, and luckily we were all able to get it. No casualties. And then we're just going to, same thing as all the other enforcers, kind of keep them right up against this like little middle, I don't know, little topiary garden or whatever you want to call it. This mob is so spastic though. And then yeah, just keeping them right on the edge there. Now I do want to talk about the Waterlog Scroll. The Waterlog Scroll is a buff that shamans and inscriptionists, and I think there's one other thing that can pick them up. I think it's, actually I don't remember. There's one other thing that can actually interact with it, but the Waterlog Scroll gives everyone in your group like 30% increased movement speed, and it's so underrated. It's so good. We were able to get it back when our druid was doing the skip and we were doing the docks pull, but it just means that we have like, it's much easier to line of sight. It's going to be easier to dodge like swirls on the ground, especially from this guy, as well as the first mini boss. It's going to be really, really, really strong when we're doing role play, like after the second boss. We're going to be able to just zoom around, collect all our clues a little bit faster. So it does speed up the dungeon a lot when you can get the Waterlog Scroll, but I think like the amount of classes that it's locked behind are very slim. It's like Shaman. There's one other, I honestly can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know Inscriptionists can also grab it. So I think our druid ended up going Inscription because in our normal comp that we run, we don't have a shaman. We typically have a warrior. So warrior gives us access to bazaar goods. We have our hunter who can access the trap, as well as he's a jewel crafter, so he can access statue. We have a demon hunter who can get fell orb. And like we pretty much in our normal composition that we like typically run, we actually have all of the buffs covered, so we can grab everything that we need. But in this comp, unfortunately, we got a little rolled, which is kind of the unfortunate part about Court of Stars is, especially when you're kind of getting to those push keys where it comes down to the last couple seconds, you just kind of like have to just deal with it, right? And you might fail a key based off of RNG, off of the buffs you get. So, all right, here we go. Talixae is a pretty easy fight. You want to stay stacked. The Ring of Peace I threw out there just for the patrol, just because I was, for fun. I won't really need it on this fight until the end. You pretty much need a 2-kick rotation on this boss, but luckily we have a shaman who can get every single kick. So I get the first one there, but he's going to end up getting the rest. You stay really tightly stacked here, pixel stacked basically, and then as soon as the imps spawn, you just want to blow them up. Very easy. As a Brewmaster, I like to start that right when those imps come out. I typically will drop an exploding keg and just big old spinning crane kick. And then on the second and third set, I'll use like something like Shocking Disclosure to get a lot of value from that. It should cover both sets. And then on the last set, I should have it like a good old juiced up exploding keg again. The imps spawn about 20 seconds apart, so you get an exploding keg for every like third or every fourth set, I think. So imps go down pretty quick there again. Me and I think our healer pop Shocking Disclosure, as you can see them kind of radiating. And again, that's just it, just pixel stack. Now in higher keys, it isn't a bad idea to lust this boss. This boss does a lot of triage damage. You can see our druid is just like slowly climbing. He's doing 75k HPS right now. Tyrannical keys, that's going to be much higher. And in a higher level key, it's going to be much higher as well. And now we know we have one more set, but we do have Exploding Keg coming up. So this next set should die fairly quickly. There's an explosive orb that's about to go off though, and it goes off. I didn't realize that until now. At this point, we're going to be able to tunnel. And that's it. Talixae goes down. All right, and this is where the waterlog scroll is really going to come in handy, because we're going to be able to get right in here and just start grabbing our clues. Now, luckily, we do have a demon hunter, so once we have all 5 clues, we can pretty easily he'll be able to spectral sight, he'll mark the ad, and then we'll be able to click the infiltrator and move on with the rest of the dungeon. I set up a transcendence at the top of the stairs. We're going to come down here, we're going to click our clue, and the transcendence is going to allow me to get up there a little bit easier. So I'm going to jump up here, little parkour, transcendence, and now I'm ready to go. In our general comp, we have like a pretty good idea of like where each player is supposed to go. Our hunter typically goes kind of like downstairs right, I go downstairs left, and then we have whichever other DPS goes up top. Now, our demon hunter already marked the guy with skull after he was able to spectral sight, and once we click on him, if the mob is up top, if the infiltrator is up top, they're going to go to the south side of the dungeon. If they were downstairs, they're going to go to the north end of the dungeon. So you kind of already know where to go once you know where the infiltrator is. Now, luckily, when they are up top, it is just a little bit faster because they have like a shorter distance to run. If they're downstairs, you got a little unlucky. Once again, RNG really kind of boils down. You can lose a lot of time or gain a lot of time, depending on how you look at it, simply on RNG. What buffs did you get? And pretty much like how the RP works out. This guy is scary. For anyone who played in Season 4, he pretty much is just like an infiltrator mixed with the Zolgamex. You pretty much need to... the tank specifically needs to counter the Vampiric Claw. You want to minimize the direct damage he does to you, because he leeches for the damage he does. So there I popped a Diffuse Magic to kind of mitigate that first blow. And then pretty much just CC the bat. I see like a lot of pug groups, typically in lower keys, they try to kill the bat, and killing the bat is not the play. You just CC it and then it disappears. Eventually. You can kind of use it to, get 2-target cleave or 3-target cleave if you want, but for the most part, it'll just die. So on this next hit, I think I dampen here. I end up not dampen. Oh, I do dampen this, and that should chain into the next Vampiric Claw. So that'll minimize the amount he's going to heal for. If you let him hit you directly, it's GG. He heals a pretty insane amount. Our healer leaves a little bit late. It's not a big deal because it does take time to collect these keys anyways. Our Gerdo is pretty much getting to the door right now, and I just picked up the keys, so we're chilling. We have 6 minutes left on the timer. Our lust just comes up. We don't have coolants for a little bit. Aegon123, thank you for the follow, by the way. That happened during the run, I think. But yeah, Melandrus is a pretty easy fight. They've definitely made some good changes to him. He used to be way harder, especially even on fortified weeks. They made the lines easier to see. They reduced his AoE aura damage, which is obviously great. Now it does replicate, so if you're standing near one of his mirror images, like, you're going to take a lot of damage, and I think you're going to see it at the very, very end. Our shaman, I think, stands in like a cluster of 3 of them and gets like 1 shot. Then the idea here is to try to keep these in a line. Tanks, you want to be very consistent with your positioning here. I will occasionally soak tornadoes on purpose. That is just to keep the kind of the ground free for our, you know, melee DPS or our range DPS. And the ebb and flow of the fight is pretty easy. It's like Blade Surge, Lines, Blade Surge, Maelstrom. Just kind of back and forth. So it's like 1-2, 1-3, 1-2, 1-3 is kind of the little dance that we're doing. Tornadoes, the tornado spawns are kind of hard to see. They're like the gray clouds. You have like the white clouds from everything else, and then the tornadoes are gray. Again, keeping these lines nice and clean gives everyone just a lot of room to work with. Our healers on one side, our hunters on the other baiting. That's not a big deal as long as they're kind of in a consistent line. Now, this is the weird part. I go to soak here, and then I'm going to try to double soak those by rolling through. I'm able to do it. My healer dispels me. I should have used Celestial Brewer or Defensive before I did so. Now, most of the damage on this fight is physical damage, so Diffuse is pretty useless on this fight, unfortunately. But I end up using Dampen Harm, and now we're just going to kind of focus on going for the kill right now. So we still have like 4 minutes. We're not in any rush. We're looking really clean. Tornado spawns right underneath them, though, which is scary. I'm going to soak here to try to keep it a little bit clearer, though our Demon Hunter got stuck as well. Luckily, there's no other damage going out outside of that Slicing Maelstrom, and as long as your healer's not stunned, you're pretty fine. It does get a little messy at the end, but that's not a big deal. I double soak those because I saw them overlapping. We're going to get one more Blade Surge to the other end of the room. And this is where our shaman, I think, eats it, because there's 2 stacked images plus the boss, and look at his health. Splat. You don't want to be sending close to those guys. And that was pretty much it. That's the run. Now, we got a Windscar Whetstone with Avoidance on it from this run, which is kind of insane to see. That is every key pusher's like wet dream. Avoidance gear is really, really valuable because it's basically a flat DR, and most of the time, the mechanics that are going to kill your group are going to be AoE based mechanics. Think of like Croth's Deafening Screech, right? That's an AoE ability technically. There's a lot of abilities that are coded as AoE, and it's super nice if you can get your hands on a lot of avoidance. A lot of the top key pushers will try to push upwards of 10% avoidance if they can, and a lot of times if you see them farming like lower-ish keys, it's because they're farming avoidance gear. Tanks typically aim a little bit more for a balance between leech and avoidance. Leech is really strong for tanks because it allows your healer to kind of focus on everything else, and healers typically will go for avoidance as well, but enough of that like little rant. Overall, pretty clean run, 5 deaths. One of them was on purpose. The rest were kind of from like minor misplays, but not a big deal. Something that you kind of like learn and pick up on. And that key turned into a 24 Shadow Moon's Burial Grounds. Now, unfortunately, we ended up failing that key by like 15 seconds. We had 18 deaths. It was just a really rough run, but pretty happy with it. So hope you guys enjoyed the little breakdown commentary. It's always fun for me to kind of nerd out about these runs. I love doing it. If you have any questions or any things that I can optimize or any questions about our route, let me know in the comments below. But until next time, peace.